All the guests present here can communicate with Khenpo through a Q&A session. This is a rare opportunity, so please raise your hands enthusiastically.
Respected Khenpo, hello. I am also a devout Buddhist disciple who follows this concept of karma. Of course, I also understand some ideas about giving. But during this process, I experienced several psychological changes. In the beginning, it really felt like I was spending my money just to seek some peace of mind. Whenever things were going smoothly, I would go to the temple and make offerings with great enthusiasm. Later on, even some tour guides at certain places would say to me, "That is enough, don't overdo it." So I felt very conflicted. Should I really be doing this or not? Later, I learned about giving back to society or other ways of contributing. For example, making donations to people around me or participating in some social activities. Now, I'm clearly not as enthusiastic in the temple as I used to be. I'm not sure if this way of thinking is right or not. I always feel that since I have a way to give back to society, I don't really do things in the same manner that I once did. Also, during the ongoing process of contributing and giving back to society, my friends around me are also aware of it. Maybe they see me as someone who likes to do good deeds, who studies and believes in Buddhism. So people often come to me and tell me about certain things. I don't judge anymore. For example, if someone around me needs help, I just give some donations directly. I am honestly not entirely certain if doing this is right or not. Sometimes I do feel a bit hesitant and uncertain in my heart, but I haven't tried to verify it. I'm not sure if these two aspects are right or not. Thank you.
I think that making offerings and giving alms is in itself a truly virtuous and noble act. In Mahayana Buddhism, there is the central teaching of specifically the 6 paramitas. Among them are the paramita of giving, the paramita of discipline, and the paramita of patience. There are also diligence, meditation, and wisdom. Among the traditional 6 paramitas of Buddhism, the very first one is known as the paramita of giving. Whether we generously use our material wealth to make respectful offerings to temples or to those who are beggars on the street, these are all very important things to consider. Of course, it is true that some people might feel a bit hesitant or reluctant when it comes to the act of giving money to beggars on the street. There are people who feel that way, but regardless, if you truly have faith in your heart, you can always choose to make meaningful offerings to temples or any other spiritual path you might choose. If you don't have faith in this area, you can give back in another way. But I think when it comes to giving, it's even more important to find those who are truly in need and help them personally. That is a better way to do it. If you lack wisdom and do not observe carefully and just give blindly based on what others say, it could lead to your own regret in the future, which is a real possibility. So we should choose a much more suitable recipient for our giving. This is also very important. If you really feel hesitant about giving material offerings or simply lack money to do so, there is an ancient Buddhist scripture called the Miscellaneous Treasury Sutra. In the Miscellaneous Treasury Sutra, 7 types of giving are described. Using your body to help others is also a form of giving. Then there is giving through speech, praising others' virtues and not speaking of their faults. Then there is the act of giving sincerely from your heart. It means having genuine respect and joy towards others. Also, it involves offering your own warm smile, consistently wearing a friendly smile, and behaving with kindness in your daily life, and so on. These various actions together make up the 7 types of giving. If we have the resources and money to present our offerings and give to others in need, that is also very good. But no matter what, it's best not to have any regrets. And during the process of giving, we should always make sure to do so carefully and wisely. Otherwise, if we give indiscriminately without any wisdom, that is not a very good or helpful thing either. That is all there is to it.
Hello, Khenpo. I am a student from the Communication University of China. I have a question to ask you. After listening to your teaching just now, I have gained a deeper understanding of Buddhism and greater faith in it. What I would like to ask you is, how can I take refuge? Thank you.
To take refuge, you first need to seek out and find a qualified refuge master. Then, when you have developed sincere faith within your own heart, you can truly follow the sacred Buddhist way of taking refuge. When the right conditions are fully met, you can then take refuge.
Hello, Khenpo. I am the founder of a startup company. There is a concept in Buddhism about going with the flow and letting go. Actually, I know this doesn't mean not making an effort. Including ourselves, we also believe that not competing makes you a fool, but fighting to the death makes you an even bigger fool. So where is the boundary between competing and not competing, letting go and not letting go? And what exactly is the standard for the choice?
Actually, whether we are talking about competing or not competing, or the concepts of letting go and going with the flow, these spiritual principles are deeply rooted within both the Zen Buddhism tradition and the practices of Vajrayana Buddhism. But Buddhism does not teach that we should let go of everything. If we let go of everything, if we give up generosity, moral discipline, and all the perfections, then that's not right either. So, in general, what Buddhism calls going with the flow or letting go, these are topics for contemplation in Zen, representing a rather advanced state of mind. In that specific state of being, everything is perceived as being empty, and there is no lingering attachment to anything. All physical forms are merely illusory. These are rather deeply profound expressions. Generally speaking, in the context of Buddhism and within our ordinary everyday lives, we should practice virtuous deeds and do what needs to be done. We should eliminate negative actions and do what needs to be done. Whether it's work in daily life or spiritual practice in daily life, we should do what ought to be done. These things cannot be casually set aside. If you really want to let go, when you encounter difficulties or suffering, then letting things take their course and letting go is also acceptable. As a matter of fact, some Buddhist terms are not actually meant to be used at all times in every situation. However, nowadays, many people in society, due to the widespread influence of certain movies and television media, end up taking things out of context and applying them to daily life at any time. In some situations, this is not very appropriate. Therefore, when it comes to work that is both reasonable and beneficial, we should also strive for it with diligence. Some time ago, I discussed the practical application of Buddhist teachings within our daily lives. In the Sigalovada Sutra, within the Dirgha Agama Sutra, it is stated that whether it is respecting and supporting one's parents or maintaining interpersonal relationships with relatives and friends, as well as agriculture, industry, and even some animal husbandry, all of these undertakings must be carried out. We should do what needs to be done. This is the essential and foundational Buddhist view of life. Therefore, when you ultimately come to truly abide in a state where the luminous nature of reality and emptiness are inseparable, let go of everything. Do not become attached. However, at this point, we cannot just simply replace everything with just one or two Buddhist terms. Doing so would not be very reasonable.
Hello, Khenpo. I am a student from the Communication University of China. Here's the situation. I am a recent graduate. Right now, I am facing the issues you just mentioned, my mental resilience and the choices I have for my future path. At the moment, I still feel rather fragile inside. You've also said that reality is actually quite harsh. Now I'm experiencing that myself, including at my current workplace. The question I want to ask is this. I've been a vegetarian for more than half a year now. But during interviews, when I meet with some guests and communicate with them, they might put a lot of careful thought into preparing some special food for me. However, the reality is that most of the food provided is not vegetarian at all. Whenever I turn these offers down, I cannot help but wonder if I am actually doing the right thing. I often ask myself whether I should strictly maintain my vegetarian lifestyle no matter what, or if it would be better to simply go with the flow. If it truly turns out that there is no other way and I'm forced to eat it, is there a specific mantra or practice I can use to resolve this?
Actually, if you wish to practice vegetarianism, many eminent monks and great masters in Chinese Han Buddhism often mention the practice of eating only the vegetarian portions of a dish that contains meat in certain situations as well, or perhaps relying on a certain method yourself. Of course, there may also be mantras. I've seen a mantra before, but I don't quite remember it very clearly now. It can be found in many books, and there is a mantra for this. You might also need to recite mantras such as Om Benza Sato Hung for confession. You can also recite Om Mani Padme Hum and dedicate the merit to all sentient beings. Since you are all young people with a long road ahead, you likely have many years in front of you in terms of both your professional careers and your personal lives. So being completely vegetarian might be quite a difficult challenge to maintain, depending on your specific circumstances and your daily life, I think. Whether there's a mantra for this, I'm not sure right now, but it's best to recite Om Banzar Sato Hong.
Hello, Master. Every year, as you mentioned, our company sets aside funds for charity. But I have encountered two problems and hope to receive your guidance. The first one is, in our work, we also face many issues. Sometimes there are conflicts with my personal beliefs. For example, there is a major investment coming up soon, and we all have to give it our all to make it happen. But in the process of doing this, it's very likely that I won't be able to cultivate myself and study Buddhism as I should. When faced with situations like this, what kind of choice should we make? It's a very straightforward question. For instance, your Buddhist academy has a Vajrasattva puja, and we really want to participate. But right now, there is a major investment at work, and we have to give it our all to make it. At this time, should we go ahead with the investment, or should we participate in the puja? This is one of the main questions I have. The second question is, as you have mentioned many times, when doing good deeds, we should dedicate the merit and accumulate blessings for ourselves. When we dedicate the merit, should we dedicate it to making our business better so that we can do more charity work? Or should we devote our precious time to accumulating more meritorious spiritual blessings so that we can see you more frequently and hear your teachings more often? Thank you very much.
Actually, I think it's truly wonderful that you are doing such incredible charitable work. Having this kind of intention is very important, in my opinion, because nowadays in places like the United States, perhaps their way of life includes charity as something quite common. And when you look at the amount of charity being done, it is impressive because nearly every household takes part in it. Some other countries are like this as well. So what is the situation like on our side? Only entrepreneurs or people with extraordinary blessings tend to engage in charitable work. It seems like for others, charity has nothing to do with us. Actually, I don't think this is very good. Engaging in charitable acts should be a priority. The poor have their own way of doing good, and the wealthy have their distinct ways as well, including in schools. If children have this concept from a young age, then the act of giving back to society becomes a natural responsibility for every single person. Otherwise, people might ask, why don't you, as a big entrepreneur, do charity? It seems like it has nothing to do with us. I don't really admire this kind of mindset. We should change this atmosphere. Everyone has the responsibility and obligation to do charity. I think this is absolutely crucial. Of course, it really depends on the nature of your company or business. When a variety of different situations come up, you also need to be adaptable and flexible. If you are able to do it, then keep doing it as always. If you find that you simply can't continue, you should also make some necessary adjustments. That should be perfectly acceptable, but it really shouldn't be that way, just because you're doing good deeds for others. When you can't keep it up after a while, you come up with all sorts of excuses. That's not a good situation. As for what you just mentioned about holding a Vajrasattva puja, I don't think there's any contradiction there. Because for a Vajrasattva puja, you don't necessarily have to be there in person. If you can recite 400,000 times yourself, it's basically the same as participating in the puja. In this way, even though you're making this kind of commitment, you can also recite in the comfort of your own home. If you can work at home and recite 400,000 times, you will successfully accomplish two things at once. Your work won't be delayed, and the puja will also be highly successful and auspicious. I think that's also a very good way to do it. It's not absolutely necessary to go there to participate in the puja. We've also mentioned this on many occasions. And then secondly, when you actually dedicate the merit, of course, many people dedicate with the intention for things like maintaining a state of good health, achieving a prosperous and successful business, and various other worldly matters. At the same time, even more important dedications are those that bring profound benefit to all sentient beings. The power of such aspirations is extremely great. Whenever we make a dedication, as in the King of Aspiration prayers, we should wish for all sentient beings to be free from suffering and find happiness. The power of this intention is very strong. What is the core of the altruistic mind that is most important in Mahayana Buddhism? It is to benefit all sentient beings in the world. This is what distinguishes us from other worldly aspirations and from various other religions as well. For example, in some other religions, they can only benefit their own followers or just humans and other similar limitations. But in Mahayana Buddhism, even if we do a small virtuous act of charity, even if it's just a little bit, including the merit from communicating for an hour today, we should also dedicate it to all sentient beings in the world. This kind of power is beyond what many people can imagine. In fact, it contains very profound and subtle teachings. So when we make dedications, it is best to follow the spirit of the King of Aspiration prayers, dedicate it to all sentient beings in the world. Of course, at the same time, it can also include dedicating some temporary human and heavenly blessings to ourselves. There is nothing wrong with that. It is also perfectly acceptable.
Hello there, Khenpo. Actually, I first started doing some good deeds about 10 years ago, around that particular time. I donated to build libraries for schools in remote mountainous areas. Then, about 7 years ago, I wanted to take this meaningful work even further than I had before. So I donated money to establish a new school dedicated to studying traditional culture and heritage. At the school, I was both a teacher and the person providing donations there. I have continued until now, but honestly, I feel extremely exhausted, both physically and mentally. So what I would really like to ask you today is about how I should continue moving forward from here. When I have such a compassionate wish to do good deeds, how can I avoid becoming so deeply attached and clinging too much? Because I feel that it's really hard for me to keep moving forward in this right now. But at the same time, I can see that all of this work has truly benefited many other people as well. My question is, when I believe that something is what I should do, and I think it is the right thing to do, how can I avoid falling into this kind of attachment again? But if I simply let things take their course, it is as if this child has already been born and has already come into this world. If I withdraw my support from this school, it won't be able to grow and go through the storms and challenges that come along the way in life itself.
All right, so the way I see it is like this. Whether you are building a new library or a local school, I think that is a really wonderful and important thing to do. Building these libraries is something that is being actively promoted in many different places now as well, which is great to see. To be honest, the libraries here are not exactly in an ideal situation as we would hope. In various regions across both Europe and North America, you can actually find many incredible and ancient libraries that have been running for hundreds or even thousands of years. Inside, they contain a vast collection of highly precious and valuable books. But here, certain local city libraries only have a few new books available. A library is a true crystallization of human wisdom and knowledge. If we have the ability, the means, and the opportunity to help, we should support them. Whether it's in a community or anywhere else, we should establish some libraries wherever possible. In fact, the wisdom that libraries bring to people is different from anything else in many ways. Even though we're living in this era now where everyone is looking at iPads and phones, there are actually fewer people reading print media or paper books. But no matter what, these digital things aren't really that reliable. We feel that watching things on CDs or using computers is somewhat different. It just doesn't have the same feeling as reading a real book, especially those written by ancient sages in the past. Therefore, we must learn how to collect books and how to preserve these precious and valuable volumes for future generations by placing them in libraries to ensure they last. Recently, I've also been working on libraries in our Buddhist academy. In recent years, both the monks and nuns communities have established libraries. I think that whether it's Buddhist texts or many other precious books in the world, in fact, in many countries, such as the UK, most libraries, including private ones, are very well established and maintained. When you go there, you feel the ancient atmosphere of these libraries, which we unfortunately lack here. So many of you present here are capable. And looking ahead into the future, whether in isolated remote regions or within your own jurisdiction, if you can build some libraries, then in the long run, this would be a very beneficial and worthwhile endeavor. It would also leave behind a valuable contribution to human wisdom and society. I think that whenever you have the ability, whether in schools or other places, establishing libraries and collecting truly precious books there, including religious texts, philosophical works, and all kinds of books from the world, can create something very meaningful. When we visit places with such rich collections, both our body and mind feel deeply peaceful and at ease. That was my first suggestion. Now let's look at the second point. Regarding the physical and mental fatigue you mentioned, I believe it might be due to a lack of mental strength. I have also personally built schools myself. I also spend time and energy on these things. But instead of feeling physically or mentally exhausted, I actually feel deeply inspired, greatly encouraged, and full of enthusiasm. Just now, I was looking at the area around our school. I requested that trees be planted and kept thinking about how to beautify the place, constantly making improvements. Earlier today, someone arranged some time for me to rest, but later I noticed some things in our school that could still be improved to make the campus more beautiful. I didn't really get a chance to take a good rest. I was constantly messaging on WeChat, telling him exactly what to do. So I think that sometimes if your heart has this kind of inner supporting strength, you should be able to do many things. Now, what is the issue with many people today? They say, oh, I'm so tired, I'm physically and mentally exhausted, I'm just too worn out. But actually, there isn't that much exhaustion. People just add a lot of negative energy to themselves. This isn't really reasonable. We have food, we have clothes to wear. If we were locked up in prison, it would probably be very painful. Having no freedom, that would be truly painful. But right now, I am free and at ease. I can sleep peacefully at night and handle all my tasks during the day. I don't think this counts as being tired. It is essentially a type of deep emotional attachment within the mind. I also build schools in the same way, and for more than 10 years there have always been things to do. But every time something arises, I am more than willing to take on the challenge. Yesterday, in that setting, I quoted Zhang Guofan. Zhang Guofan was once asked, with so many daily affairs, meetings, and military arrangements, and you still study, how do you manage to find the time for everything? He replied, it's nothing. When it's time to meet guests, I meet guests. When it's time to study, I study. So being able to adjust our mindset is very important. If you can make an effort to transform your mindset, what's so tiring about building a school? There's really nothing to it. Even building 100 schools isn't really tiring at all.
All right, I feel very encouraged as well. I'm also a college professor. By my calculations, I'm teaching 152 hours every year. But just now, I was really impressed by Khenpo. If Khenpo were to stop teaching and giving lectures from now on, and I tried to catch up to his teaching hours, I would need to teach for another 100 years. So I truly admire Khenpo.
Hello, Khenpo. I have a question to ask you, because I plan to work in the media in the future, and I'm currently about to begin my work in live broadcasting. Whenever I get nervous, I start to get a runny nose. I'd like to ask you, how can I overcome this? In the future, when I'm doing live broadcasts, what are some ways that I can keep my mind calm and prevent myself from getting too nervous? Thank you very much.
Honestly, the questions you both raised just now are quite similar to each other. Nowadays, when many students first start the work, they may feel somewhat nervous. This is a normal and natural phenomenon. But once you gain a little work experience, you will gradually become more confident and handle these situations with greater ease. Honestly speaking, at that point, there is really nothing to be nervous about anymore. There's nothing in this world that's truly worth being overly attached to. It's not all that wonderful, but it's not that cruel either. So after you first step into this world, as time goes by, whether it's the many joys that life offers, you'll gradually experience every single flavor: sour, sweet, bitter, salty, and spicy. What I actually wanted to say just now is this. In the future, whether you're doing live broadcasts or recorded ones, regardless of what you are doing, you must always strive to keep your mind perfectly calm. Actually, these days, I also give teachings every day. I am like this both within the academy and outside as well. Today at noon, I taught a class, and again in the afternoon. Tomorrow afternoon and the day after tomorrow, I have classes too. So now I don't have time to prepare. But regardless of the circumstances, I simply let things take their course. My mindset is also quite calm and composed now. I hope that when you all step out into society in the future, you will always have an altruistic heart, as that is your most significant source of support. Whether it's broadcasting or anything else you do, it is my sincere hope that my words and actions will bring a benefit to those around me. With this kind of mindset, you can approach anything you do much more freely. So in life, there will be many ups and downs, especially in today's world, whether it's the process of job hunting or employment. The competition has become extremely fierce. At times like this, when things feel uncertain, it might be hard to imagine how things will go. People of our age now, I think, can see society and the world much more clearly. But when we finally see things clearly, Unfortunately, we are already old, and there is little we can do about it anymore now. This era just gradually becomes like this. You can see it at a glance. However, you all still have truly wonderful opportunities which are available continuously. Among all these opportunities, having a strong heart is very important. If you are strong inside and more easygoing, you can face many things, right?
Hello, Khenpo. I am a recent graduate from the Communication University of China, and my question is, in my spare time, I take voice acting classes. While I try to understand each character, I also find myself much better able to understand the various people around me more clearly. I realize that every living being experiences suffering, and that life is not a simple or easy journey for anyone. Gradually, I developed a habit to try to truly understand the people around me, even those who have hurt me in some way. But as time went on, I began to notice a significant problem. It really feels as though I've been deeply neglecting my own feelings. Inside, I feel hurt, but my logical and rational mind keeps telling me that the other person also is going through their own difficult struggles. I find myself more able to see the vulnerable and pitiful side of those I resent. But I realize it's incredibly hard for my reason and emotions to find a sense of true harmony and balance. So I want to ask, how can I achieve this balance in life? Should I treat even insincere people with genuine sincerity and kindness toward them as well? Thank you.
Wow. Your question is very complex. I keep circling around it in my mind, and I honestly don't know how to put it into words. Actually, the kind of problem you just mentioned is something that many people have to deal with. On the one hand, it is great to see that today there are also many students and teachers from the Communication University here. In fact, the media has become a very important social influence and plays a significant role in guiding society. I hope that in the future, whenever you are spreading any kind of knowledge or information, you will consider the lasting impact it has on the world. You will do so with genuine kindness in your heart. Of course, the world may not be exactly as you imagine it to be. No matter which country or specific place it is in this wide world, there will always be a gap between what people hope for or idealize and the complex reality of our daily life. This is a very natural law, but society truly needs a strong sense of guidance toward goodness and morality. The kind of guidance that is being provided by the media outlets in our world today plays an incredibly vital and significant role in shaping the values and collective principles of the whole society. If every single individual across the globe has mistaken or confused values, then the entire social system will also be in a state of total chaos, confusion, and deep instability. Even if on the surface it appears to be quite orderly, in reality, people's hearts are in turmoil. So in this regard, every person present here today should also pay very close and careful attention. The principle you just mentioned is a key point that we must all remember. In fact, everyone pays attention to this kind of attitude differently and personally. If I were to answer this using a standard worldly moral perspective, the logic is simple. If others treat me well, then I should certainly treat them well in return. However, if others do not treat me well, then I should also respond or reply back to them in a worldly and conventional manner. If we follow some of the Shravakayana views in Buddhism, there is something called the Four Rules of the Shramana in the Shravakayana tradition. According to the specific perspective of the Four Rules of the Shramana, if others hate me, I do not hate. If others insult me, I do not insult back. I should strive to cultivate patience and steadfast forbearance, no matter how other people treat me, whether they slander me or have any kind of attitude toward me. As a practitioner of the Buddhist faith, I strive to never commit any harmful or negative actions toward them. If we speak from the specific perspective of Mahayana Buddhism, such a hateful person actually has pitiable aspects. He is truly to be pitied. Because he is bound by ignorance and delusion, not only does he not show gratitude, but instead treats me this way. He would even treat other sentient beings in the same manner. In this situation, I should help him out with the utmost sense of benefit and compassion. Not only should I not harm him, but on this basis I should also help him. This Mahayana spirit is something that most ordinary people find very hard to accept. If that were the case, society would fall into chaos. If someone harms me, and not only do I not seek revenge, but instead help them, then I would be seen as having an especially weak spirit. That's why many people today find it difficult to accept. But indeed, the altruistic mind of Mahayana Buddhism, its transcendence over everything else, is found exactly within this particular point. So perhaps by utilizing a variety of different analytical approaches, we can fully address the specific question you just raised a moment ago.
Hello, Khenpo. I am currently working as a full-time teacher. I'd like to share a bit of my own feelings. Maybe everyone else knows this, but personally, I don't really know for sure. My question is, from your perspective, Khenpo, perhaps all problems are actually good things in the end, that everything is a good thing. What I really want to ask is there anything that may not be good? That is my main question today.
I don't think every kind of problem is good. For example, the act of harming other people or deliberately hurting sentient beings, these are things I consider to be clearly not good.
The reason I ask is because, for example, sometimes I've also taken refuge, though my own practice isn't good. Sometimes when I visit my guru, I share my doubts and confusion with him. Then my guru says, "This is a good thing," and gives me further encouragement. But I still feel quite confused at that time and cannot fully understand.
That's what your guru thinks is good, not what I think is good. If your practice isn't good, I don't think that's a good thing.
Hello, Khenpo. I'd like to ask you, when we are making some kind of contribution or engaging in altruistic acts, we might feel a certain lack of freedom. Or when the pain is reflected back to me, I might feel powerless. So I think that in this process, maybe it's because my own wisdom is still insufficient. You just mentioned wisdom as well, so I'd like to ask you, when I am engaged in altruism or making contributions, how can I further enhance my wisdom? That is the question I want to ask. Thank you.
No matter who we are in this vast and ever-changing world that we all inhabit together, whether we are doing good deeds or striving to advance in our careers, wisdom is absolutely essential. In the teachings of Buddhism, it's called wisdom, and in the secular world, it is also referred to as wisdom. So then, what is wisdom? It is the ability to discern what to accept and what to let go, accept what to take, let go of what to release. The definition of wisdom is this very ability to discern and choose. Of course, exactly as I just pointed out, when you engage in charitable acts or make your contributions, you actually need wisdom. This specific kind of deep wisdom requires you to be consistently very good at observing. So what does it really mean to be good at observing? For example, whether I'm doing charity or any kind and good deed today, I need to understand the entire process. Nowadays, some people perform animal releases, and when they do so, they don't even observe the place where they're releasing the animals. Nor do they consider the lives of the beings being released, whether they belong in fresh water or salt water. They don't observe any of this and just release them impulsively with a compassionate heart. Or when it comes to birds, they don't check whether they're domesticated or wild. In this case, perhaps you lack wisdom, or it is possible that you just quite haven't put into practice your wisdom. So whenever we do anything, we should rely on our own wisdom to make judgments. And we should carefully reflect and observe over a much longer period of time. If your wisdom is limited, and you really can't understand how things work through observation, then you should consult experienced elders or wise people and have meaningful discussions with them. In fact, many unknown questions we encounter only become clearer after repeated discussions, analysis over time, through careful consideration and deeper reflection as well. At that point, whether you are making a contribution or doing good deeds, the results should be very good. Even if what you choose to do is not entirely perfect or ideal, at the very least you can rest assured that you won't have any regrets. But if I make a contribution based on a very simple and deeply personal idea of my own, the consequences that may arise could be incredibly varied and entirely unpredictable. So no matter what specific course of action we ultimately decide to take, we need to have a kind of keen wisdom. If you really lack wisdom, then several wise people should come together to discuss. Of course, when it comes to what you call good deeds or contributions, whether it's really appropriate to discuss them with many people I'm not particularly sure. But generally speaking, when our own wisdom is lacking or in such situations, it's best to discuss things multiple times. In the end, you'll have a clearer idea of what to do and how to act. I think this is the best approach.
Hello there, Khenpo. I would really like to ask you something while we are here. Here's the situation. Just now I saw that as a soon-to-be graduate about to enter society, some of my classmates just now also asked some questions that I really wanted to ask you myself. I've also received a lot of advice from you. I'm truly grateful for that here. Today's opportunity is like this. I feel that besides the work-related confusion I had before, just like my classmates, I've personally started to experience some particularly unbalanced feelings recently. I might start comparing myself to others, and for no apparent reason, I feel like I've lost myself. It might be even more serious. Sometimes I just break down. I fall into this cycle of sometimes breaking down, sometimes figuring things out emotionally. I honestly feel that this sense of imbalance might be because I'm young and simply lack enough life experience. But I really don't know how to get rid of these difficult emotions. So the question I'd like to ask you here is, how can I truly and deeply understand myself and find a way to put myself in a more tranquil and peaceful state? How can I face this feeling of imbalance with more confidence and self-assurance? So I'd like to ask for your advice. Thank you.
When considering that sense of imbalance you mentioned, it seems like when I was trying to answer that last question of yours, I was also feeling quite confused at the same time. I'm also very confused because it's like having to solve a particularly challenging riddle. I'm wondering, at which specific point do you feel confused? Go ahead and share your thoughts with me.
It's probably not just at work. It also happens with friends, in relationships, and with family. I often inexplicably fall into a mindset of comparison. Maybe I feel like others are more talented than I am in certain ways. I can't find myself, and when it gets serious, I feel completely lost. Then I fall into these emotions that sometimes collapse and sometimes ease up. How can I resist this sense of imbalance? That's the question I want to ask you.
Okay, I understand now. Now I am starting to fully understand the situation. I think it is not just a unique problem for you alone. A lot of young people living in our modern society today might feel this exact same way. Maybe back when we were all studying, we were just far too focused on our studies and academic achievements. And right now, as we are on the very verge of graduating or stepping out to enter into society, quite many people feel deeply insecure. This is also a frequently encountered and common psychological state. Maybe you just had the courage to stand up and speak out about it. Many of your classmates and many other people are also facing similar issues, just as you are experiencing now. It could be pressure from family, pressure from work, including problems in daily life, mood and relationships. There are so many different problems. Sometimes, as the well-known saying goes, misfortunes never come singly. Many different problems can often happen all at once, but after a little while, it is just like the sky clears after the heavy rain. Everything is finally fine once again. All the dark clouds in your mind from before will completely disappear. It will be like this. Actually, the root of these issues, I personally believe it comes from being far too deeply attached to life. But this kind of attachment can't really be fully eliminated, because when you're still very young, whether it is your passion for life or your enthusiasm for work, generally speaking, you possess a particularly strong attachment. This specific kind of attachment is something that some Buddhist practitioners advise us to avoid in our daily lives. But actually, the more you tell yourself not to be attached, the more attached you become. It's really not that simple. A lot of the attachments and connections in life aren't so easy to let go of. But I think generally speaking, as you get older, or as you naturally gain much more experience in your work and personal life, this overwhelming feeling of collapse will actually disappear quite quickly on its own. It is really not such a big problem for you to worry about. After another 2 or 3 years, your inner strength will be much greater. I honestly think these things shouldn't become any significant or real problem.
All right, thank you, Khenpo. Just now, a shy guest asked a question. She asked whether you could give everyone some homework for us to do today together here.
I sincerely hope that you will take the time to read the words of my perfect teacher.
Did you remember that, dear guest? Everyone here in the audience, did you remember it? If you remembered, please raise your hand. All right, we've all remembered. Thank you, everyone. Khenpo, please have a seat. I believe everyone really enjoyed listening today and paid close attention. Maybe Khenpo is a bit different from how we used to imagine in our minds. Isn't that right? He is warm, humorous, and extremely wise. So I am truly grateful to Khenpo. And I am also very happy to be here with everyone, listening together to the words of a wise person. I believe all the guests present feel the same as I do. We have all felt the radiance of Buddhist wisdom and the nectar of truth, right? So let's make an agreement together. From now on, in the journey of our lives ahead, let's all ensure that we possess right view, are filled with deep compassion, and embrace that positive energy. Our keynote speech for today will officially come to a close right here. But I believe this is a new beginning for all of you. May everyone, Khenpo, and all the volunteers here receive blessings and enjoy smooth journeys. Hope to see you all again.